Hello, hello.
Hey.
Good morning, good afternoon, happy Saturday. We are officially back online from recess. For anyone that is watching this video, we took a break between, I would say, basically August till present day to kind of go on recess and essentially kind of assess what our next steps are for this community and UGC social in general. So we're super excited to officially be back. Hi, Mark. Hi, Claudia. Thank you guys so much for joining today. We are very, very excited to essentially just be back, hang out with you guys, and of course, share all things UGC, direct response marketing, creative strategy, and all that good stuff. But before we dive in, really quickly, for anyone that isn't familiar with myself or Shane, I just wanted to do a very quick introduction. I'll introduce myself first, and then I'll hand it off to you, Shane.
Cool.
So, for anyone that's watching this and isn't familiar with who I am, my name is Kelly. I essentially founded UGC Social back in 2021, 2022. But I really didn't do anything with UGC Social until TikTok blew up with UGC. And so that's essentially kind of how we've got here. Since then, I went from being a full-time creative director for a top D2C brand where I was leading paid media creative strategy to being 100% self-employed. So since then, I have left my full-time career and I am now a 100% self-employed UGC creator and creative strategist, which has been very, very nice and very exciting to finally reach this milestone. So I'm definitely really excited to be able to build my business while also building UGC Social and really helping it be, having it be a resource to help all creators get to where I've been and even surpass it in a faster amount of time, which we've already been able to do with all of our incredible resources. And then I'll hand it off to you, Shane, just so you can introduce yourself to anyone that isn't familiar with who you are.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to also just give a big congrats to Kelly for going full time on her own is such a big step, especially when, she's wanted by so many companies to come in full time. And she's like, nah, I'm gonna do it on my own. And I'm really proud of you for doing that. And also I just think it's really cool. So
Thanks, sweetie.
paving the way. Yeah, so if you don't know me, my name's Shane. I've been helping Kelly with UGC Social since we kind of started the community. I've done a lot of like community led products in the past, but most of the time I spend is doing direct response editing, motion graphics. I usually do like really premium packages. So I'm not as much focused on UGC, but I always end up editing a lot of UGC. So I see it from the post production standpoint, and also working with clients to like kind of what we call re-optimizing assets. So a lot of the work I do is taking a client's, library of UGC assets and be like, how can we turn this into, a new ad that, we can put out there that isn't fatigued and that isn't, is fresh and can like attack a new segment or try something new and experiment. So that's where I spend most of my time. So I see a lot of the UGC on the back end. I've seen good UGC and bad UGC, but I'm very aware of it through Kelly, but also just through my experience working at an agency.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, whenever I have a client that needs the male version of the script, I'll normally just tag Shane in or tap him in, and he'll be the on camera talent. And he does very well as that UGC creator as well. Also, I love it when Shane mentions his clients because he is essentially an enterprise editor. He like, the way that he describes it is a lot more low key than it actually is. He comes from like an extensive agency background where he's worked at now 3 well-respected agencies. But more recently, like who have your clients been? Like Aloe Yoga. I know you've worked with Theragun in the past. Like you've
Yeah,
worked with some
Aloe,
really big name brands like
Whirlpool,
Anchor,
Paul
Whirlpool,
Mitchell.
Paul Mitchell. Yeah,
Yeah.
so Shane, yeah, he gets to bring his editing strategy, creative strategy, to what is the post-production part of creating those assets, like Shane had said, re-optimizing those pre-existing assets. But yeah, it's been really exciting because for those that also aren't familiar with the UGC social community, we launched this community in May. And that's when I brought Shane on as a co-founder of UGC Social. And so since then, we have actually made the community 100% for free as of July, which is why then we went on a break in August, a recess, to really figure out things that we want to do more for you guys. And if you've noticed, I've been sharing a lot more job opportunities. We were already doing trainings. We were already having guest speakers, but we are very excited for what's in store. And I don't know if there's any other details I can share, Shane. You can simply say no if not, but I wasn't
No,
sure
I
if,
can
like,
talk about it a little bit.
yeah, maybe you can just allude to some of the exciting things we're working on.
Totally. So if you haven't already, there's a section in our Discord called jobs, and you might have already applied. What we've been working on is essentially I don't want to say social platform, but it's really like a recruiting platform for creators and brands to connect. Just because there's a lot of barriers for that, and so it's a completely free um, platform. We're like getting pretty close to finishing it, where you can have your own profile connect to your it connects directly to your portfolio wherever you want that to go, and then we essentially have this database for brands to for free look up creators based on certain demographics, certain location, if there's any kind of like specific client that or like competitor that they want to look at creators that have worked for. You can list clients, you can list specific industries. So we really want to make it a way for you all to be searchable, because I feel like that's really hard right now. You know, it's really competitive on Twitter to just look up UGC creator. So essentially we have this database, and then we're going to add extra tools to it, but it'll just be a completely open place for you to have your profile, and then drive leads to your portfolio. It's kind of a no-brainer for any creator.
Yeah, so we're definitely very excited to be able to work on this more. Shane's still working full time, but his schedule is a lot more flexible. So I'm so appreciative of all of his hard work that he's been putting into this. And I'm very excited to be able to share this with all of you and make this tool 100% accessible, because it's going to be free to creators. I think that's like really what we've been honing in on, is that regardless of where you're at in your journey, the goal is to make this as accessible as possible. And yeah, we're just very excited. And especially now that I'm full-time or 100% self-employed, I'm still not working full-time, but I'm 100% self-employed. I'm gonna have a lot more time to work on UGC Social with Shane. And then I think the last really big, exciting announcement that we have is, if you didn't see already, yesterday we officially launched our TikTok text template. And Shane, I would love for you to talk just a little bit about this, just so anyone that's watching this can really understand how truly invaluable this plugin is.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, we've been working on it for a while. And it's just always really hard when you make the move to Premiere to like really recreate organic text. It's just not, it's so obvious when it's not right. And it's always frustrated me because I've been having to do that for years now, like having to recreate it in like Illustrator or After Effects, and like make sure that it's like, you know, as exact as possible. So we just went ahead and built a plugin for Premiere. It's super easy to install, and it allows you to do all of the you know, native TikTok text, like neon handwriting. You could do like backgrounds. It all looks very organic, and it just, you know, it's really easy to use. So that's been something that we're really excited about. And as someone who works every day in Premiere and After Effects, I'm going to be using it all the time. So it's really exciting, and it just makes your whole workflow so much faster.
Yes. Yeah. It's funny because I think back to, I want to say 2020 is when you started to really see, we started to see our clients ask for that TikTok text. Because when you think about it, TikTok had already been in existence for years by that point, but it really wasn't until COVID quarantine that TikTok really went super mainstream. And like all of a sudden, the joke was, oh, I'm on TikTok. And it's like, really? You downloaded TikTok? And so since then, obviously, it's become a lot more widely used as opposed to what used to be like the dance app or the lip singing app. But it's funny because even 3 years ago, we had clients that were like, yeah, we want the TikTok text. Like, can we do white text with a black outline? And then you do it and they'd be like, it's close, but it's not as accurate. And so we had to do all these fixer upper solutions where, I'd even sometimes have to upload my already edited video and do the closed captions in TikTok and then like download the video, and it was just making the video low quality.
Mm-hmm.
All this goes to say this is an incredible resource, and I'm actually going to send the link in the chat for anyone that's wanting to check it out. And use code launch25 at checkout for 25% off, and that is going to be a 24-hour promo we're running, which will expire end of day today. So it's something that when you're working with your clients, if you tell them you have this, they will look at you and be like, whoa, I didn't even know that existed for Premiere. Because Shane and I, we had to literally build this. We had to find a professional who was able to do this and essentially create this template plugin from complete scratch, which is, it was very exciting to do.
So exciting. I'm definitely like, I've downloaded so many plugins for Adobe that I just kind of, I felt so accomplished having my own.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, so I think before I go into the creative strategy, kind of like going over my contracts, one thing that Shane had talked about was, or we wanted to talk about, was a forum post that Shane recently made, which I think it would be a really good opportunity also for us to maybe, can you just even explain what the forum is before you even go into your forum topic that you shared?
I think I can actually share, I can present the. Cool. So in our Discord, we have a section that we post to. We kind of like, I guess we'd call it like micro blogging, where we just, instead of like a newsletter or anything, we just want to keep like anything we learn, thoughts, tools, tips, just like top of mind. So if you go to the forum, I posted, oh wait, this isn't it. Oh yeah, this one. My last post was about how to think about visual copy on screen, and it's a discussion I had with my clients, and it became a really important conversation I had with them, where I think a lot of people start forgetting about how long it takes somebody to actually read copy on screen. So I have like a small presentation I could just jump through, if you want to do that.
Yeah, please.
Cool. So cool. All right. So, how many words can anyone actually read in your videos? And that means on-screen copy. So, I think it's important to kind of think about this in a kind of a objective way, because it could determine how long somebody actually watches your video. Or if someone is like, "Whoa, too much text. I don't understand what's going on.
Swipe.
Get me out of here, swipe." You just got swiped because you just put too much text in, or the client forced you to put too much text in. So it's a good conversation to have with those clients. So why your video ads need to account for reading speed. On-screen copy is often an ask for clients, where they'll try and jam a bunch of unique selling points and value props into a video, where they're like, well, it needs to say this, and this is actually a trademarked word that we want to like spend a bunch of money on this. So you have to have, Brewmaster 5000 TM in there so that people know like we're, industry leading in some capacity. That always happens.
Always. And it's so silly.
It's so silly. You're working against the clock to keep your video snappy and fast paced. So, the more you cram into one video, the longer it gets, the higher drop off you get. So it's important to think about reading speed. So the baseline reading speed for adults is 250 words per minute. So if we kind of compress that down, that means 2 words per second for complex messages and 4 words per second for like really simple messages. Um, and it's also cool to think about that this isn't like a new thing, because for billboards, they've been doing it forever. There's something called the billboard rule, which is when you design a billboard, drivers have about 3 seconds to look at your ad on the billboard. So you only want like 6 words. If you have more than 6 words, nobody's going to be able to read it, right? So you have to make sure that you're being as sufficient as possible. So in this case, you even see this Nike one. They're over 6 words, but I think this is in like Times Square or something. So it's people walking. So I think they can get away with longer. But like if you're in LA, I'm sure you see a billboard every day. Try to check out if they have 6 words or less. If not, there's probably a client in there that forced them to put more information in.
That's funny.
So I think one of the things when I was going through this, it was kind of hard for me to determine, what makes an ideal condition, meaning like what is the difference between 4 words per second versus 2 words per second, and why, like, if I were to calculate these things out, what would be the difference? And so like, it's also important to think about the context, regardless of doing any calculations, the context of how your on-screen copy looks in video. So like ideal conditions would be you have text on screen, but there's no real visual distractions. The wording's simple. It's a problem or solution that's easy to understand or they're already familiar with, which makes it less confusing when they're reading along or reading some sort of copy. And then it also helps when you have voiceover that helps them read along. So, in UGC, you all do that all the time. And I think that's one of the benefits of UGC is that voiceover can help them kind of, keep up. Like they're not behind reading and then all of a sudden they miss something and they're like, okay, well, I don't know, whatever. And then complex conditions, which are sometimes necessary, but just important to remember, would be like when you have to do a visual of the product, but you're also putting text on screen, you're distracting the viewer from both, right? Like the viewer's going to want to look at the product and read your text. So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing is kind of, you're weighing those options and you're not forcing them to do both at the same time, or like that complexity could make it harder to read. So your messaging should be simpler. So too much on-screen information. There's a typo there. Sorry about that. Too much on-screen information. Right. So like if you have 5-star reviews and you have 5 stars, and then you have the review, and then you have the reviewer's name, and then you have like a banner, like that's too much information, even if it's not necessarily text. All that information is distracting and more complex. And then obviously, if you're talking about a really complex problem, those problems need more time to digest, right? If like I feel like I see a lot of people doing like finance UGC or something for, I don't know, like say you're doing UGC for some sort of mortgage thing, right? Like explaining something complex, you'd want to be very concise about how you're talking about it, because you're basically probably they're running those ads just to educate consumers on why they need that product. So it's already hard enough for a viewer to even understand what's going on. And then obviously like newer complex words can be distracting or make it more complex and shorten that reading time. Let's see. So I have some examples. So this is a client I had recently, Broovy, which is like it's like a hygienic coffee maker. It's pretty cool. I didn't get one,
Fancy.
but I got to do the ads. And so like this one, get Broovy and instantly brew tastier coffee. Since it's simple, it's about 4 words per second. So it's about 2 seconds. I can't see clearly the text of the slide. Oh, is it
That's
because
weird.
it's too
I can see
small?
it.
I can also make it, I think I can make it.
Thanks, Claudia, for sharing that. You'll have to let us know if it helps with Shane's adjustment. But we'll also be linking this deck.
Yeah, I'll
After.
share the deck for sure. So in this case, the text is get Broovy and instantly brew tastier coffee. So that's about 2 seconds to read. It's simple messaging. Um, it's obviously really bold. It's not too distracting with the product. So I'd give it like 3 seconds, right? This one was like hotter, stronger, smoother. That's like less than a second. You'll just
Yeah.
immediately read that.
And I love that one more.
Oh, I love
If
that
you
one.
could go back
It's
to the
great.
last one, Shane, real quick, which also let me know if this is overkill. Should you
No.
share your deck in the chat now for anyone that can't see or
Oh, I
no?
can share. Yeah. Anyone with the link can play.
Just
Copy.
in case.
Cool.
Sorry about that. If you expand the YouTube video to full screen, you can't see it, but if you leave it normal in the window, you can. Oh, hey, Marielle. Cool. Yeah, there's something about this Get Broovy ad. If you could remove that top right
Oh, sorry.
corner. Yeah, I just no, sorry. Yeah, Get Broovy and instantly brew tastier coffee. I just feel like it's even still so wordy. Like the
Oh,
next slide
totally.
over is so like I love how just like boop 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 it
I
is.
mean, realistically, you'd have like the Broovy logo and then like instant tastier coffee. Like you don't need
Yeah,
to say brew. You don't need to tell them to get it. Like,
yeah,
I mean, honestly, like instantly tastier coffee is not even a unique sell when your competition's Keurig, right?
yeah.
So you kind of want to even just simplify it to just like like meet Broovy. I mean, honestly, it's just a cool product. Like this is the first product shot in the video, so it should be like,
Yeah, totally.
meet Broovy. This is your new coffee maker. Hotter, stronger, smoother. This one I think is easy to read, really nice, shows like a lot of the like unique selling points, or at least like they're trying to say that they're better than like a Keurig, hotter, stronger, smoother. And then there's like this one,
Haha.
which
Oh my God.
the client really wanted social proof, which is obviously great. But the problem with social proof is that it can be really complex. Like it can be, you have a quote, you have a name, and then you want to add like other things like 200 plus 5-star reviews, right? And so even just the quote alone here is like 6 seconds of reading time. And
Yeah.
it's complex. Like you're talking about Keurig, you're talking about the strength is impeccable, the taste is amazing. Like you're talking about like 3 different things in one sentence, and then you include like all of this visuals. Like that's very complex. Somebody's barely going to be able to read this quote. So it's important to think about those things because um, yeah.
And even though these are statics, Shane's referencing the time it would need if it were in video format, just as a note for anyone.
Right. These are screenshots from a video.
Nice. Oh, cool. I
Yeah.
didn't realize that.
Yeah, ampersands are good. I like
Yep.
that. I use that a
Same.
lot actually because I think it kind of it's visually easier to read
Yeah.
sometimes.
That's a great question,
Um,
Eileen. That's what I do too. Because if it just looks too busy on screen, it can be really overwhelming. And even before we go to the next slide, one thing I also wanted to note when it comes to closed captions in your UGC videos, closed captions are obviously the exception to where, like, if you're doing literally closed captions, transcribing what you're saying on camera through closed captions on screen, my advice is to do enough words so the viewer still has enough time to watch the video, and if they want to reference the captions, because sometimes it can either be too many closed captions on screen, like say it's like 2 sentences, versus sometimes creators do the like 1 or 2 words on screen and it like pops up, but that's like impossible to follow and to read. So you're
Right.
going to want to follow that happy medium, which would be like, I would say between like 5 and 8 words, just so the viewer, whether they are, because we have to remember that Facebook, those ads are designed for sound off, meaning that when you are creating a UGC ad, you need to ask where this ad's going to go, because if they want a 4x5 or a 1x1 for feed for Facebook, people, the user, they more often than not, like very much like 80% of users on Facebook listen sound off. I don't have the
Right.
exact number, but it's the majority of users. So that's where closed captions come in. But I wanted to at least put that out there, if that makes sense, just because we're talking
Yeah.
about not wanting too much text on screen, but closed captions are the exception. But the pain point with closed captions is finding that happy medium of not having too many words on screen during that air bite versus not having enough.
That's a great point. Also, I saw there were some questions in the past. We'll come back to those in a bit. So
Oh yeah, I
we'll
said to
definitely
send them
answer them.
over and we'll answer them at the end.
So my last slide here is, if you have a client that really has like complex work, obviously you're probably already doing UGC for them. I think that's why emphasizing, even if you need the sell, like to sell it, like saying, voiceover is going to help. If it's complex, voiceover definitely helps. Auto captions also help. So like you can reduce a lot of your on-screen copy, like on TikTok, if auto captions are on, and you have voiceover. I mean, I think most viewers will be able to follow along, no problem. Also, you can digest more information from listening than you can reading. So, and also like the inflection you use also helps convey more meaning. So, it's just, I mean, it's better overall, like as part of your pitch, especially if you see a client that has a lot of like, non UGC, non voiceover, just like a lot of the stuff I just showed you where it's just text and product stuff and it looks kind of high end. But I think being able to pitch them and say, hey, like, if your engagement's poor, like, what if we tried doing some voiceover UGC work and really like try to condense the information that you're trying to sell down? So, yeah.
Absolutely. And a rule of thumb that I also follow, because the science behind, because when Shane says like, complex words needing X amount of seconds and simple words needing X amount of seconds, Shane, what is the average reading level in the country? Is it 6th grade?
Think so, yeah.
So it's also understanding that the viewer, you're going to want to simplify that information, but outside of simplifying the information, what I like to do when I am doing text call outs or copy on screen, so not closed captions, so copy on screen, but not closed captions, I like to practice as if I'm scrolling and then looking up at my ad and having it play and like pretending like I'm the person seeing this ad for the first time. My immediate reaction isn't to read the text, it's to take in the visual and
Right.
what I'm seeing. And then by the time that I take in that visually, then when I go to the text, if it's already off screen, that shows that it was too quick. And so one of the biggest pieces of feedback I give to UGC creators that I work with is, hey, can you please elongate the length of whatever text at this time code? Because it's not on screen long enough. And I have seen that with creators of all experience levels. And so this goes to say that this is something that is overlooked by a lot of creators. And I think it's just really important to remember that when you are adding in text callouts and when you're editing your video, The person who is seeing your ad for the first time, their gut reaction isn't the same gut reaction we would have as the people creating the ad. Like, yeah, sure, like I want to read the text, I want to see whatever. But like as that first time viewer, you are scrolling on TikTok, looking at your friend's post, and then the next video is your ad. It's like, do they have enough time to visually take in the video and then read the text on screen for every single scene? And so that's just something to really think about and consider when you are doing copy on screen for your concepts. Just because, again, it's been a huge, huge, huge revision that I've had to send to a lot of creators is this isn't on screen long enough. Can you make it longer by like 2 seconds? Nice. Samantha, thoughts on text on screen with captions? Like if the brand asks for text but puts captions on. Personally, that sounds like overkill because normally when I approach closed captions or text callouts, it's normally one or the other. And normally what I like to do is ask my client what their preference is. Do you prefer closed captions or do you prefer that I do text callouts that truly highlight the value props, those unique selling points that we hope to convey and communicate to your viewer? Let's see. I can go into creative strategy and then we can answer the rest of the questions after that.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So this is more so just like an introductory conversation because I am just really excited that it's starting to become a hot topic. Basically, since UGC went mainstream back in 2022, I have really made it a point to focus on the strategy behind it and really share with you guys that the way to making incredible amounts of money when it comes to your services is offering that return on investment, offering that return on ad spend. And so there is, yes, there are creative strategists. I was telling Shane, I say strategist. And as someone had said, I
Potato,
like how you say
potato.
it.
He goes, it's potato, potato.
But one thing that I feel like a lot of creators are overlooking is that if you are a UGC creator who offers concept ideation, who offers script writing, who's able to do that full process from start to finish, you're already operating as that creative strategist. And it makes sense, right? Like the ones that have been operating as this equally analytical as they are creative creator, they are offering that return on ad spend. They are creating sales driven UGC concepts. And so something that we really want to hone in on and something that I'm really excited to even like kind of like lightly allude to is what will be a very exciting announcement having to do with what is taking your creative strategy to the next level, but even just to show a little bit of what the process is. For me, in the past 4 weeks, I've been able to secure multiple contracts that now equate to, from an annual perspective, $250,000 as a creative strategist. And so when I say that number, this is from 3 contracts that are month to month, but with brands that really want to work with me. One of the agencies that I'm working with, they had really wanted to hire me internally. And I had to, this is like one of the brands that Shane had said that they wanted to hire me. But I had said, look, like I really want to be this creative strategy consultant. I would love to work with you guys, but like I really want to be that contractor. And so to put it into perspective, the money that can be made, I'm working with this agency where my hourly rate is $150 an hour. But what I've been doing is I've been offering what is a discount if they can commit to 10 hours a week. And so that contract, along with 2 other contracts with another agency and then a health and wellness brand, these contracts equate to, I guess doing the math, 250 divided by 12, that's like close to $20,000 a month, something like that, which is just, it's almost $21,000 a month, which is insane. But so one of the follow-up questions is, okay, but like, what are you doing? What are you doing for these brands that you're able to make that kind of money? And so think about it. If you are a UGC creator who has already been operating as that strategist, what does that look like from a service perspective? That is coming up with concept ideas. That is writing scripts. And when I say writing scripts, it can be either for UGC concepts or re-optimizing those pre-existing assets. So every client has a Google Drive or a Dropbox or some sort of cloud-based archival system with thousands upon thousands of statics and videos that are just sitting there. They are assets that they paid for, that they can then re-optimize and turn into a myriad of advertisements. And so again, you're coming up with those concept ideas, whether it's sourcing those creators for UGC or re-optimizing those pre-existing assets. And it's important to note that, you know, as powerful as UGC is, it's not the best form of marketing. There is no best form of marketing. There are winners in every category. And as that creative strategist, it's becoming familiar and comfortable in understanding the strategy behind creating a direct response driven static, GIF, HD video, UGC video, UGC pre-existing asset mashup. Like there's just a million and one ways to create a high converting ad. So again, coming up with the concept idea, again, whether it's whatever format, it could be static, it could be GIF, it could be any video. And then writing that concept. So either the script or the copy for it. And one question that I saw recently was, you know, like I am being asked if I'm a creative strategist or if I'm a copywriter, and I'm not. But if you've been writing direct response driven scripts, you are. And so that's just really important to really emphasize is don't let that imposter syndrome tell you otherwise. Just because you don't have the traditional background of a script writer or a copywriter, it doesn't mean that you aren't one. And that's very important to note. That's something that I struggled with for years, was really being able to find the confidence in saying, I'm a direct response driven script writer and copywriter. And now to this day, like now I know because my copy converts. I am a DR copywriter. There are branded copywriters, which I'm not going to say I'm a branded copywriter because I'm DR mindset all the way. I'm not like there is a time and a place for branded copy, like on the website or whatever it might be. But like DR, absolutely. So, oh, sorry.
Oh, so I was just gonna add, like, if you also talk about copywriting, like copywriters have niches anyway. Like there's like landing page copywriters, there's blog organic copywriters, there's ad copy like that people write that a lot of like paid media people end up doing. Like you could be a copywriter in a lot of different mediums, and having a niche is great. Your niche is social, like video, right? Like that's, and especially if you post organically, like if you're already posting any organic content, like whatever you say or do in that was either scripted or you came up with it on the fly, therefore scripted on the fly. Like you're already naturally good at it. It's just in a
Absolutely.
way that doesn't seem like, you know, anyway, sorry, go ahead. But
No,
it's good to have
sorry.
that niche, you
It's
know,
very
and your niche
true.
is TikTok, Instagram, whatever.
Absolutely. And then, you know, after the concept ideation, the scripting, or the copywriting, that is sourcing either that creator for that UGC concept or those creators if you're planning to do a UGC mashup, or re-optimizing those assets. So going through and digging through that Google Drive, digging through that Dropbox, and choosing the pieces of content that will be the most thumb stopping, really reflect the product's integrity, just really show the best sides of the product or service that you're marketing. And then also becoming familiar and comfortable with working with other creative contractors. So that is direct response video editors, graphic designers, other creative strategists, a roster of freelancers that could be UGC creators, whatever it might be. And it's important to become familiar with a lot of the, I'm going to say like unspoken, not rules, but like an example would be is when you're working with a DR video editor. For Shane and I, we both are direct response video editors, so it comes very natural for us. But if you don't come from that traditional editing background and you have a client who says, well, I want this motion graphics project by this afternoon, you have to become familiar with the fact that that is a completely unrealistic request. because something that's done in After Effects is going to require a lot more time than something that's done in Premiere. But also, what's the project that's being done in Premiere? Is it a project that requires extensive sifting through assets or whatever it might be? But so all this goes to say is you're also, as that creative strategist, looking to become familiar and comfortable with working with those other creatives. And Shane, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add to that, but it's just like, it's one of those things, especially as editors, that when you work with someone who doesn't come from an editing background or a graphic design background, it's very obvious. And so I only share this to really bring it to anyone's attention, that to really have the respect and understanding, to be able to feel comfortable to set both realistic expectations while also making sure that, you know, the client and all stakeholders are happy. But also making sure that you're not disrespecting that creative contractor, that editor, or that graphic designer, just because basically, if, you know, we've been in situations before where it's just like, no, that you can't have this by end of day. It's just not realistic. Whereas if you have the understanding of the time it takes to do an edit, which as UGC creators, you are somewhat familiar, obviously, some more than others. But all that goes to say is being comfortable with working with other people. And then lastly, it's coming, or not lastly, but after that, it's being able to QC that work, quality control, quality assurance. Is that advertisement up to par from a branding perspective? Is it as direct response driven as it can be? Are there any spelling errors? So not only are you looking for the things that are misspelled, but you're also auditing this work. Did this video editor create the advertisement that you envisioned that will be thumb stopping, scroll stopping? Is there any point throughout the ad where it feels like, ooh, this is where the drop off's going to be, because basically after 15 seconds, this ad sucks? Like, you have to be able to look at that advertisement, that first draft, and really not just, again, not just looking for spelling errors. You are really auditing this work. You are getting familiar with, you know, what has worked before for thumb stop. Oh, wow, like this, I think what could maybe make this more thumb stopping is if we added in this effect, or if we did this. And then outside of auditing that work and getting it to an approved export, you, of course, are going to be in the loop on how it performs and figuring out what those KPIs are, those key performance indicators, and being able to review that performance feedback and then iterate on it. Did the concept do well? Did it do poorly? Was the thumb stop the highest on the account that they have ever seen? How can you take that hook that had the highest thumb stop on the entire Facebook account and now apply it to maybe a historical top performer that is fatiguing, or come up with a net new concept that has that thumb stopper in the first 3 seconds? And it's really becoming familiar and comfortable with this process. Now, when I say this, I assume that there are people who are listening to this that maybe are like, she is talking a completely different language here. But rest assured, the more you practice, the more you walk the walk, the more you work on this, the more comfortable you become as that creative strategist. I wasn't always this way. I mean, heck, even 3 years ago, like, I just remember telling Shane, like, you know, like, I understand a lot of this intuitively, but like, there's just something that makes me feel like that imposter syndrome. And the more that I've just, you know, been able to dive into the data, become familiar with trends, and just really just get comfortable operating as this strategist, the just better you get. And also, when you're listening to this, understand that this process can be collaborative. You can meet with the paid media manager, you can meet with other creative strategists, you can meet with the creative director, and really just like talk about these KPIs. Because another question I get asked often is, oh, well, like, what is like the best thumb stop industry wise, or what's the best ROAS that your goal is, like, industry wise? And it's always different for every client, because, you know, someone would answer saying, oh, well, obviously, you know, a 2x ROAS would be great, or, oh, like, you know, a 1.5 ROAS would be great. You want to break more than even. But that's not always the case for every brand. For example, I had a client who Their goal was to get to a 0.7 ROAS, which is not even initially
Profitable.
breaking even, but it's because their 90-day ROAS eventually became profitable. So it's just important to know and become familiar with the fact that you're going to get performance feedback. These KPIs, these benchmarks that these brands are following, they're all different from the rest of your clients. So you'll want to get familiar with basically what their standards are. And then you essentially repeat the process over and over again to be more conversion driven, offer that greater return on ad spend. And so the fact that this is now starting to become more of a hot topic in the UGC community is very exciting because I mean, to this day, I accredit being able to have made over $100,000 last year, working only 10 to 15 hours a week on average, and taking off close to what was 8 weeks during that year because of the value, that return that I offered my clients. When you offer so much value to your clients in the form of conversions, you have entire negotiation power because this brand needs to work with you because you're the one that is converting in sales for them. And so if anything, hopefully this is empowering for anyone listening is, the more strategy driven you are, the more return on ad spend you offer. And then thus the more negotiation power you hold as that creative strategist and UGC creator.
We should probably jump into some questions.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Eileen asks, can you talk about music volume and the importance of choosing the right music?
Ooh, love this. Oh yeah, great featuring. Yeah. Eileen, great question. So as far as volume goes, if there's going to be someone talking on screen, you want to ensure that the volume of the music is not overpowering your speaking on camera or whoever is speaking on camera. Depending on what you use for an editing software, it's going to vary. But I edit in Premiere, and typically I'm able to do -20 to -30, and between that -20 and -30, that's the sweet spot to be able to have a voiceover or on-camera talent talking while also having that background music. Again, if you use CapCut or another platform, basically the rule of thumb is when you play back that video and you listen to yourself or whoever talk on camera or that voiceover, can you clearly hear that person talking, or is the music overpowering them? Also, if there is talking, you're going to want to make sure that that music doesn't have lyrics because it's going to be much harder for that person to absorb and retain that information because you're essentially having them multitask without needing to. And then as far as music goes, one, ensuring it's copyright free to make sure that you are not you're not putting the brand in harm's way of potential legal retaliation. A really good example is the London Iconic lawsuit with the Warner Bros. I can send over an article after this call if anyone's interested, but essentially they had creators who were creating organic UGC. So UGC that was going to live on their TikTok, their personal TikTok. It was not being launched as an advertisement. These were organic posts. Warner Bros. Is suing them for it because that is a brand who used their talent, their name, their likeness, their music to essentially profit because they still had a link in bio with their products. And so it's just important to ensure that you are not committing copyright infringement as that creator, putting that brand in harm's way, but also putting yourself in harm's way as that creative contractor. That said, we're big fans of Artlist. And if you're interested, I can send you guys a direct link to what is a discount if you're looking to subscribe to Artlist. I've been using Artlist since 2018, I want to say. And I am a huge, huge fan of their music. I think they have the best options outside of maybe Epidemic. I know Shane really likes Epidemic because they do stems, which is great. So you can essentially pick and choose the different types
the music
of
tracks. You can edit the music tracks. So
yes.
You can kind of pick what you want.
Yeah. But if you guys visit my Stan store, I have what is a direct link to a discount for Artlist if anyone's interested, which I can quickly just send the link here if anyone's intrigued.
We have a lot of questions, so let's jump.
Sorry, we'll push through it.
How do we go about offering ROI? Like, are there specific deliverables?
So when I say return on investment, a lot of the times the brand is looking at their return on ad spend, which basically means, is your advertisement highly converting? Is it creating sales? And so what I like to do and what I normally recommend to creators is that when you create one concept that is going to be launched as an advertisement, you are shooting yourself in the foot if you also do not offer 2 aspect ratios, so 4:5 for feed, unless if they request 1:1, and 9:16, so they can launch it on TikTok, stories, reels. Why do I say this? Because that concept you made for TikTok, guess what? It might perform better on Facebook. It just might, but we don't know until they try. So what I offer is 2 aspect ratios, and then you should be offering multiple hooks because it's within your best interest to provide at least 2 alternate hooks to A/B test because it heightens the likelihood of good performance. And if not good performance, at the very least, you are going to learn something by providing those iterations. So the best kept secret or the best approach you can do is if you are on here and you create ads in the format of UGC or any ad for that matter, you should never, ever, ever provide just one deliverable. Ever. You are completely shooting yourself in the foot if you only provide one deliverable because you're essentially saying, here's our one shot, one shot, and I hope it works versus 2 aspect ratios for multiple platforms. Who knows which one will work better? It's not just TikTok, it could be feed on Facebook, but also, again, that alternate hook. And for me, I like to provide 3 to 5 alternate hooks. Let's see. As the creative strategist, can you go back and make little edits on your own if you're contracting an editor out for that project? Yeah, you can totally do it. The one thing as far as like little edits go, if we're talking about video editing, I would say no, because if you are working with an actual video editor who's industry standard, they're editing on Premiere Pro, which if you're not already familiar with Premiere Pro is going to be a lot harder for you to be able to like do those edits. So one of the tools that Shane and I use is Frame.io, which if you guys aren't familiar with it, you should definitely check it out, especially as that creative strategist. I just sent the link in the chat. This is great because you can really communicate the revisions in a way that makes sense. So when I say that, say it's a 15-second ad and at second 4, you see something that you don't like, or you see an opportunity to add something, you can literally comment at that exact time code. You can even circle the spot that you're talking about and you can give your feedback. So what I would say is from like a workflow perspective, as that creative strategist working with a video editor, you should use Frame.io versus sharing project files and confusing things just because it can get kind of messy. Whereas Frame.io is a great secondary option. How much control over ad success does the paid media manager have versus the creative strategist? Ooh, this is really good because guess what? I've been in situations where I created hundreds of ads with iterations, and it got to the point where I actually had to pull aside someone that was higher up than me and the paid media manager and say, hey, for the past 6 months, I have been leveraging best practices, creating concepts that are within in the guardrails of high converting. I need someone to audit the paid media manager because I foresee that they aren't actually doing the best job because we're not getting any winners. I understand not every ad is going to be a winner, but it's been 6 months and we don't have any winners. And so I've actually had to do that before. And so all that goes to say is good creative can overcome poor media management. But that said, if it gets to the point where you're like, I've created X amount of deliverables and they're telling me nothing's working, I want to bring it to someone's attention of, hey, have we considered auditing what the paid media management side is? Because as UGC creators, you might already be familiar with this, but for Shane and I having an extensive agency background and working internally for these agencies, the biggest frustration as a creative is that they always have a magnifying glass on creative. creative always gets the blame. Oh, well, the creative just wasn't good enough. It didn't work. It's never, I wonder if it's the paid media manager. I wonder if that's why our ads aren't performing, which is why it's important to understand that if it gets to the point where you're like, okay, there should be a winning ad, like I'm confident in what I've created, there should be a winner, to not put blame on them, but to question saying, oh, should we consider auditing what the paid media side is doing as well? Because we've been auditing creative and we haven't gotten anywhere. So that was a really good question, because I've had to now 2 or 3 times over the course of my career bring that to someone's attention, and to make a very long story short, one of the paid media managers that I had to bring the attention on, shine the light on for auditing, he ended up being let go. And I felt bad about it, but he wasn't doing a good job.
Right.
And we brought someone else in, and every ad that they said didn't work became historical top performers.
Yeah. I like to think of it like if you gave somebody a bullhorn and they had to give a message to people, like you could obviously write the best script for them to talk into the megaphone, but if they're on a roof or in the desert, they're not going to get anybody to hear it, right? So you got to like, I feel like that's a good way to explain it to clients, is just talk about like, where is this message being broadcast? Like at a certain point, you can write the best speech ever, but if nobody's there to listen to it, then, or the wrong people are there to listen to it, then it'll be a bad speech. So,
wow,
yeah.
I love that example.
Yeah. So, we have a few more, so I just want to make sure we get through it. I wanted to go back. There was a great question from Claudia, who's been patient. I just want to make sure we got to this.
Oh, Claudia. Okay, let's see. I'm outside of the US in Latin America. Unfortunately, here UGC is so badly paid, like $10 a video. But I don't know if brands are willing to work with overseas creators. The good news is there are brands who are looking to source creators from all over the world. I work with an agency, or 2 agencies now, where I'm sourcing creators from, pretty much every continent with the exception of Antarctica. So rest assured that there are international opportunities out there.
Totally.
And I'm so sorry to hear that that's what the current market is in Latin America. But just know that there are brands in the US, in Canada, in Europe who ship internationally and want creators from every geographic out there. So if anything, maybe what you could do as that creator or strategist is to look up brands that are really popular or ship just in general to your area, and reach out to them by pitching, hey, like I noticed that, your brand that is located in the US or Canada or Europe or wherever, I noticed that you also ship to Latin America. Have you ever thought about testing, specific users based on their geographics? Because if you ship to Latin America, wouldn't it be most authentic for me to be the creator who lives in X country, and be that person for that specific ad that's being launched in my area? So that's something to think about. You can, kind of take it into your own hands and do that cold outreach. But rest assured that brand ship internationally. And as someone that's been sourcing creators more often as of recently, I'm sourcing creators from literally every continent with the exception of Antarctica.
I would also add, there's probably a really cool, unique pitch, obviously assuming you're bilingual. I mean, I can only assume that there's a great pitch in there when we talked about ROI and delivering multiple hooks or different variations, like being able to say, hey, my niche, there's nothing wrong with a niche. A niche can be really great for you. Be like, I can do your ad in 2 different languages, and you're able to test new markets in Spanish, Portuguese, whatever you might speak, and be able to say, like, that's my unique value prop. And I guarantee you there's some big brands out there who are testing in especially like South America, Latin America. There's a lot of companies that are advertising down there, because now a lot of the shipping infrastructure is going down there a lot like more efficiently. I know like Media Monks, who we have a friend who works there. They have a whole team set up for just South American, Latin American ads and companies and brands. It's a big industry. It's just, you might have to find the right pitch or find the right clients, but I can guarantee you can get better work than $10 an hour, and you should never be getting $10. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's out there.
the currency it comes out to for, but regardless, 10 sounds way too low.
Cool. Let's see. I wanted to just do one more question here.
Hey, Marianne, if your client did not or is not providing you with performance metrics for your ad, is there another way of getting them? So, receiving performance feedback can sometimes feel like pulling teeth, just because if you don't establish that expectation from early on, it can sometimes be challenging. But that said, if you're a creator who has a client that you've been working with and you haven't yet been able to ask for that performance feedback, it doesn't mean you can't get it. Specifically, whoever your point of contact is, it's important to establish why you're asking for this performance feedback while also making sure that you're not asking for too much, just because some information the brand might find as private or that they don't want to have other people know about it. I know for Shane, when he works internally for an agency, Shane, you said that some of your clients are really hard to get performance feedback from, right?
Totally. Even like we're working with, big brands, like massive brands, and they're like, there's when you get to that height, it's more about like data security. So they're like very weary of giving out data. And depending on certain companies, they might also be kind of weary about it. But there are programs like it's called Motion app, I think. It's Motion app. And what's the one that you use, Kelly, in the past? There's another one. There's apps that you can suggest
Yeah.
that
What, North Beam?
yeah, I can't remember, but Motion app is the biggest one I know of. And it's a great way to suggest seamless reporting. So you can make an account and then have them add you to their ad library, and then like you can kind of manage it in that way. So you're not like necessarily going into their ad account, but you're getting feedback on certain creative and be able to like watch performance in a way that's like more geared towards you as a creative, not, looking at this big spreadsheet of, ads and things, ad manager can be kind of confusing at times. So definitely suggest some of those things, maybe look into it. But there are tools that are getting better that are trying to alleviate that tension, because even at my level, it's really hard getting data. Like even internally, it's hard getting data from our agency, from other clients. And that's just because there's a lot of data and there's a lot of like protection around that data. So people don't want like competitors finding out. They don't want, there's a lot of concerns that are, sometimes warranted, but sometimes kind of unwarranted. So it's tough.
Absolutely. And a sweet spot request would be, when you're working with this client, especially if they're reoccurring, is, hey, in order for me to do my best work and offer the best performance, it's important that you share with me any standout or breakout KPIs. Because, you don't need to know everything, but like if there are KPIs that are standout, like I said, like, oh my God, this thumb stop rate is the best one on our account, or oh my God, the majority of people actually watch the entire video all the way through. This view through rate is insane. Like you're going to want to know that information. But also Jessica had mentioned, or was it Jessica? Let's see. Or was it Sam? Wait, where did it go? Oh, Sam had said requesting analytics is a great thing to add to your UGC creator contract.
Yep.
Definitely something that you guys can do. And I think it's just important for the verbiage. I don't know what Samantha's verbiage is. I'm sure it's fine. But like, if you're someone that's listening and you don't have the verbiage down, it's important to somehow communicate that like, you're not just like asking for this information for your like own well-being. You are asking for this information to offer the best return on ad spend, the best return on investment you can as that creative contractor. And in order for you to do your best work, you need your point of contact to share breakout KPIs with you on your advertisements.
Yep.
Nice. Any other questions?
I would just add one more thing to that, is it's also a good idea to just you might have to entice them a bit. So one way to do that would be to suggest like, hey, I will offer you a free post-mortem or a QBR, quarterly business report,
Love that.
on all of your ads, which is just, a summary of all the ads, but I need the analytics in order to do that. But that's a really helpful, like, free product, but that gives you not only analytics to use for case studies. So it's a positive thing, even if it seems like free work, or maybe you charge a little bit more for it. But suggesting that could make the client go, well, if I give it to them, I get a benefit where I get, a presentation at the end of the quarter that's just like, here's the ads, here's the performances that you gave me, here's what I'm thinking for next quarter. Something like that.
Absolutely. And then really quickly, I'm seeing that Juliana had asked a question with your plugin. So she's talking about the TikTok text template. Does making it native text with Adobe affect engagement with social media algorithms because they prefer the edit to be done in app? So when I'm talking about pretty much like anything UGC related, by now you guys are probably familiar that I only do the ad side and not the organic social side. So as far as like, the algorithm for organic social versus the advertisement side, there are differences. And as that UGC creator that's creating advertisements for brands, you're not editing an app unless if you're posting it to your TikTok and then they're going to do like Spark ads through that video. So to answer that question, it's not going to affect the engagement in the sense of it being an advertisement, just because any agency with an editing team, we're not editing in the TikTok app for TikTok videos. We're editing in Premiere Pro. We're going through rounds of revisions, and then the brand is launching it on whatever platforms. That said, there's obviously, there are a ton of I would say SEO hacks, just because TikTok really is like the new Google. So when it comes to the organic social side, I'm not going to have any commentary, just because I don't want to pretend like I have, that much, I don't know, knowledge there, just because, I only know as much as I know, and it's not like a focus of mine. It's always been advertisements and direct response or ads in general. But all that goes to say is the TikTok text template works great was created for advertisements specifically, since you aren't able to have that TikTok text without having to go into the TikTok app, which makes the editing process a nightmare.
One thing I will add to that, I know we're over, but I just wanted to add
No, you're
there.
fine.
One thing we'd learned from um, changes to Meta was that engagement on organic engagement on ads does affect placement. So was it TikTok, or I can't remember now if it was Meta or um, TikTok, but they kind of follow each other step in step. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's both.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but they were saying that comments, likes, and organic engagement on ads does affect how placements are made for those ads. So the media buyer, because it's harder for the paid media team to necessarily target specific demographics, it's become more important for these platforms to use engagement to place ads. So you'll get cheaper results if you have more engagement, because it's a better ad and more people are more likely to engage with it, whatever it might be. But having that organic look and making it feel as organic as possible from even start to finish, I think does have a huge benefit to that engagement, because people are more likely to comment, more likely to stay with the ad, thinking it's organic, or just feeling like it's an organic reaction of yours. So I think it's important to really emphasize the organic look as much as possible, because that engagement is key for the media buyer and their
Absolutely.
placements.
Really quickly, Claudia had asked, do you recommend using a teleprompter for beginners? My advice is you should get familiar with using a teleprompter, but don't actually use the teleprompter app for a concept for a client until you are 100% comfortable on camera. Just because if you're starting out and you're not in the swing of things when it comes to utilizing that tool, it just will not look as real and authentic as it could. So definitely get familiar with using a teleprompter before you start offering that to your clients. And then outside of that, I know Jessica had mentioned about how some agencies you've worked with also don't have access to the data. It's wild to me, or creative strategists who are hiring and sourcing creators mainly. It's become a huge pain point in the industry, but it's also for security reasons. So there's definitely ways around that. And again, like asking for standout KPIs, breakout KPIs. You don't have to see the whole ad account. It can still be private, but like, even if it's something as simple as the hook in this video is the top performing thumb stop on our account. Like that is enough information for you to take it and like apply it to future concepts. God, I could answer all these questions really quickly. Mark had said, how did you come up with charging $150 an hour? Is that the industry standard? And how do you get them to commit to 10 hours a week? So for me, when I started out, my rate was $50 an hour. So as that creative strategist and video editor, I was charging $50 an hour. That was, I would say, like 4 years ago. And then 3 years ago, I raised it to 75. And then recently I raised it to 100. And then when I started working for myself, I started charging 150 with the discount of 130. And I'm actually going to be raising my rate now to 175 with a discount of 150. So ultimately, just like UGC, it's kind of hard to come up with your rates. And it's kind of like the struggle or just like bane of any freelancer's existence is like kind of being intuitive with it and figuring out what's the best rate to charge. There is partially industry standard involved, but there is also a majority of the value that I know I offer from that return on investment, but also the demand. So the reason why I'm saying, I'm even going to raise my rate to 175 with a commitment of 10 hours a week to 150 is because of the demand that I'm having. I mean, I'm now getting close to capping out my time, which means it's time for me to raise my rates again. And so if you are hearing this and you are new to UGC or creative strategy, and when I say new, like you are still in your first year, you are still learning the ropes, you obviously wouldn't be charging 150. You would be charging, in my opinion, you should never go less than $35 an hour for video editing or creative strategy, because you have to think about how after taxes, that's going to come out to $25, maybe even $20 an hour, which for that skill set, it should not be that low. But that said, it's very intuitive. And I'm sorry, that's not a direct answer. But that said, it takes a lot of practice, and it eventually becomes more intuitive. For the longest while, I struggled with it. I know, Shane, you've been a freelancer too for most of your career as well. It's like, it's the bane of your existence as a freelancer, is figuring out what rate makes the most sense. And for me, like now, again, like it's very intuitive. I'm raising my rates because of demand.
The easiest way to think about it is it's a demand. It's based on demand. Like if you don't have a ton of clients coming to you at all, like if you don't have a lot of inbounds and you want to fill up your calendar and you have open slots, like you probably want to go with a lower rate that is obviously enough that's worth your time, but enough to where you're like, okay, this is something that I'm happy to do it for $50 an hour, knowing that it'll eventually go up. But you got to think about like demand. And at a certain point, like for Kelly, for instance, she was trying to get these contracts, luring them in with really low price points that she knew they would take. She might say, well, my time's worth $100 an hour, but I'll do 50 because I really like this client. It'll give me some nice like metrics, and like I think we could have a good long relationship and slowly like develop that over time. And then another client comes in, and then you're like, wow, I have too many clients. Like if I want to add more clients, like I could be getting more clients at this rate, but I need to increase my prices because otherwise, like I need to value my time. So it's really just a demand metric. Like your time is worth whatever you charge, but demand will help you push that up, because you're more likely to negotiate, right? Because it's really on you. You could go to a client today and be like, I charge $300 an hour, but like they're going to be like, I don't know you. I don't know anything about you. So I would think, start small, but you can work your way up over time. And once you have enough negotiating power where you're like, I don't care if I get this client or not because I have enough already. And then you can start increasing your prices when you get that. And I think that's the best way to
Absolutely.
do it.
Absolutely. And I just shared a link to a newsletter on rates I've seen over the years hiring creative contractors. So if you guys ever want to check that out, in addition to making the community 100% for free, I also made my newsletter. So if you guys aren't already subscribed, be sure to do so because it's 100% for free now. But outside of that, what a wonderful first
We
time
just do this
back.
last one because this is important, and then we'll wrap. I think
Yeah.
this is a good one.
I'm wondering if you work quickly, would hourly work against you? So, no, because, well, one, you are in control of your rate, right? So, if you are that quick worker, you want to make sure that your hourly rate is reflective of still the value that you offer. And so, for me, I'm a very quick worker, which is why I had to make sure that my hourly rate reflected the value that I offered to them because I'm that quick worker. But at the same time, as that, freelancer who is hourly, the brand does want to know that you're not going to be taking a long time and draining their budget. So there is that happy balance you need to have. You want to make sure your hourly rate protects you because of that fast work. You also want to have a minimum in place. Mine is I have to have at least 1 hour of work for me, like for me to do whatever you want. So even if, they don't reach that 1 hour minimum, I'm submitting an invoice for $150. And so that having a minimum in place, which means even if they don't get to that hour or that 2 hour marker or whatever that minimum is, you can still protect your time because you have that minimum. So defining that hourly rate to protect the value you offer, having that minimum in place, and then also depending on your hourly rate and also your minimum and being a fast worker just means you have more time to take on more clients. Because for me, that's how I've been able to secure these past 3 contracts. And I'm looking to secure one more, which will then put me close to the $30,000 monthly marker, which is crazy to say, but it's like, yeah, it can actually work really in your favor, but you just want to make sure that there are certain things in place to protect your time and value.
As just an example, I kind of went through this recently. My rate's about the same as Kelly's, about 100 to 150 depending. And I started working for a friend who I know through the industry, and this is my first time working at their agency. So I was like, they're like, we just really need help on this project. Will you take $750 for a project? And I was like, okay, fine, yeah, I'll do it. You're my friend. Like, we'll do it. I'm at over like 12 hours now. So my rate has gone down significantly because there's been like 3 rounds of revisions. Like a lot of these things were not, dictated in the terms. And I was kind of just like, I'm like, hey, I'll help you out. I really want to work with your agency in the future. Let's just do it. I'll send it. I'm happy to do it. And ultimately, like I made way less than I should have if
Yep.
I had just stood strong and just been like, no, I want to work with you guys, but I have to do hourly. In the future, I'm only going to do hourly. I can't do single projects because the amount of revisions that can happen, especially if you're dealing with an agency that's dealing with a client, then you have an extra round of revisions in there where the agency is going to want to review it. Then it goes to the client, and then the client has revisions, and then there's another round probably to finalize it. So it ends up becoming like 3 rounds of revisions, and protecting your time is what hourly does. And if the client, like Kelly said, if the client has concerns, add a maximum or add a minimum if you feel like you do it quickly. But I always round up hours, right? Like if
Yeah.
it's an hour and a half, it's 2 hours because, yeah. So just,
Yeah.
just think
Same.
about it. It depends on the client though. Like if you feel like you really want them as a client, do the per project if it works for you. But it really depends.
Also, I think just to give some context, because Claudia had said this is interesting. I thought as a UGC creator, you charge per video, not per hour. So the project that Shane's talking about is he's an editor exclusively for, which on my Twitter, I've made sure to like post this. I think I even posted it yesterday where I was like, if you are a creative strategist or a video editor, I didn't say video editor, but if you were either a creative strategist or video editor, you should be charging hourly. to protect your time. You should not be doing monthly retainers, because that is how you get taken advantage of and you walk away with what would be a below average industry standard hourly rate. But as that UGC creator, doing per project is, what really is the standard, if that makes sense, Claudia.
Cool.
Okay, let's see. Sorry, and then we'll hop
No,
off.
it's good.
We
This is
love
great.
this engagement, and we're so excited to be back with you guys doing this. So Samantha said, curious of the benefits of a contracted creative strategist versus in-house. Great question, because Shane and I have both been internal creative strategists for agencies and brands, but also freelance creative strategists. So as a creative strategist coming from the brand side, you can make a six-figure salary. So when I say six-figure, I would say the standard right now for what would be a advanced level strategist, you can make anywhere from $100,000 depending on the brand with benefits. Obviously, you get health insurance, all that good stuff, maybe even a 401k match, upwards to what could be $200,000. And I say that because I've interviewed for brands where I would have been like the senior creative strategist for jobs that were like 185 base salary with upwards to 30% bonuses depending on performance, plus also, again, like medical, dental, yada, yada, yada.
That said, I would say the minimum's probably lower though. I've seen a lot of
That's
job
hard,
listings
yeah.
where they're hiring at like 75 for a
So,
creative
well,
strategist.
so I'm talking advanced and senior, but
Sure,
if
yeah,
you
but for
are in,
most people getting into it, you
yes,
might be making like 75
I would say
thousand a year.
nothing less than 75.
You shouldn't, yeah, I think for
Yeah.
that job.
But I
But
would
yeah.
say like between 75 and 100 is that like not beginner, but that like intermediate. And then the growth opportunity is upwards to what could be that pushing 150
At
marker.
our agency, our senior creative strategists, or we call them creative managers, they make about 120.
And I've interviewed with other agencies they're around that sweet spot. Agencies always have, not always, but a lot of the times they pay less than like internal for a brand. And so I feel like a lot of the jobs I've had interviewed in the past year ranged between, that like 100 to like 135. But again, like starting out as a creative strategist, you can definitely count on like 75 to, I would say, like 85 sweet spot, which is incredible. It could be life-changing for someone that's listening to this. And then of course you get medical, dental, other benefits, PTO, stuff like that. I meant more benefits for the brand/agencies. Oh,
Well, money. It's all about money, right?
yeah. Yeah.
I mean, working in-house is nice too. Like, if you really want to be in like a learning environment, I think working in an agency and as a creative strategist, you learn a lot. Like even at our agency, we had there was a woman out of college who became a creative strategist. She didn't have a ton of experience, and she's been great. And it's been a really good learning environment for her. So I think no matter where, like if you want to go in-house, I think it's a good opportunity also to like have a learning environment, because a lot of agencies want to help you do that, like the right ones. So I think it's also a nice place to like kind of set your roots, experiment, have access to a lot of resources.
Also, Samantha, if that didn't answer your question, the only other angle I can think of that question would be revolving around is, if I were a brand, is it better to like hire a creative strategist internally or work with an agency, which ultimately also comes down to money? But let me
Oh,
know if that was your question. In the meantime, I'm also going to just pull up Mary Ellie's. What kind of things would you need to have in your resume to be hired as a creative strategist for a brand? So as that creative strategist, first off, it depends on the role or like the responsibilities you're looking to have. But like the typical creative strategist for a D2C brand or an agency is understanding direct response marketing. So literally everything you already do as that UGC creator, but like across the board for all formats of ads. So again, like statics, GIFs, HD video, UGC video, re-optimize pre-existing assets. So one, expert, expert understanding of direct response best practices. Outside of that, being able to communicate that you also understand the whole process from start to finish when it comes to producing that creative. That is a huge leg up that I've had as what is that creative strategist for brands, is when they hear that I also am able to come up with the concept idea, write the script, film the concept or source the creator for the concept, and also edit the concept. They're like, oh, that's amazing, because you're going to drive really well with our team because you know how to talk to video editors or you know how to source creators. But ultimately, as that creative strategist, the biggest thing you want to hit home on is that you understand direct response marketing best practices. You understand how to create conversion driven advertisements. And then really quickly, Samantha had said, yes, that's it. Okay. So it's funny because Shane and I, we both come from an agency background, obviously. We normally don't recommend brands to work with agencies just because the ongoing joke is when an agency signs a client, it's like, unless if you're like their top 1% spender, like as far as like revenue driving, you're going to get passed off to like an entry level coordinator. So normally brands really, I feel like especially nowadays, they're trying to be more conscious of their budget because agencies are expensive. Normally an agency will charge for running just ads in general, 10 to 15% of that ad spend. So if you're a brand that's spending $100,000 every single month on ad spend, which is on the low end, that agency is taking what is $10,000 to $15,000 of that budget for their profit. That's normally the agreement that an agency has. And then on top of it, if the agency charges for creative services, it's even more than that. Sometimes agencies will offer it as like the, like, you know, oh, you're paying the 10 to 15% every month on your ad spend, so we offer creative services for free. But regardless, agencies are expensive. So for example, one of my longest standing clients that I worked with for 3 years, they were working with Tube Science. And so Tube Science is a very well-known direct response marketing agency. And they eventually were able to leave Tube Science because my advertisements beat every one of their ads. And so when they reflected on the 2021 advertisements for that year, those top winners, 18 out of those 20 ads were my ads. And so they got to the point where they're like, okay, cool, we can leave Tube Science because we just want to work with Kelly because I'm a lot more affordable than an international agency or a national agency.
I'll even add that Tube Science's whole model is that they do work for free, but they get a commission on your ad spend. So that said, like literally they went to Kelly even more. Like they'd rather pay more for good work that was performing better than a company who's literally incentivized to do better work. So I think it says a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. On that note, we're 30 minutes over, which is incredible. Love that.
Yeah.
Shane and I are going to go to the farmer's market, I think, which I'm really excited about. But guys, thank you so much for joining us on our first official training session back. And it's so funny because if you are new to these training sessions, this was more of a like ebb and flow conversation, but stay tuned for some very exciting trainings coming up where like, you know, we have a whole deck and we walk you through stuff. But we thought, you know, what better way to spend our first time back than kind of having this like open dialogue and kind of just like this ebb and flow conversation. But outside of that, thank you guys so much for joining, and stay tuned for future announcements in the Discord. If you guys aren't already a part of the community on Discord, I highly recommend that you guys join it, just because you'll stay in the loop with job opportunities, new updates for the UGC social community, as well as also forum posts like those microblogs. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.
Bye.